Welcome to the Way Left podcast. This is Brian Vitello, your host. Let's dig in to socialism and communism MAGA's way. So, what is socialism and capitalism? Let's just look up at a definite. I know I've said this in another podcast, but let me look up. Socialism is a socio-economic doctrine advocating for public ownership or control of property and natural resources, emerging as a response to the inequalities of capitalism. That's the initial. In India, socialism gained prominence in the early 20th century, a part of an independence movement. So that's one definition. So let's look at. They say that this encompasses various movements, including Marxism, Karl Marx, social democracy, and anarchism, and has evolved over time to address social justice and economic equality. Let's look at communism. A political theory derived from Karl Marx or Marxism, advocating class war and leading to a society in which all property is publicly owned and each person works and is paid according to their abilities and needs. Communism. Okay. Now let's at communism versus socialism. The differences between socialism and communism. Communism and socialism both aim for shared ownership, but differ in resource distribution and class structure. Communism requires state control over resources, while socialism distributes based on contribution effort. Both communism and socialism formed as responses to worker exploitation during the Industrial Revolution. What else does it say? Okay, so now we have a chart, a good chart. Basic philosophy, communism, from each according to his ability, to each according to his needs. Socialism, from each according to his ability, to each according to his contribution. Economy planned by central government for both. Ownership of economic resources. This is communism. All economic resources are publicly owned and controlled by the government. Individuals hold no personal property or assets. Socialism. Individuals own personal property, but all industrial and production capacity is communally owned and managed by a democratically elected government. Distribution of economic production. Production is intended to meet communism. Production is intended to meet all basic human needs and is distributed to the people at no charge. Socialism. Production is intended to meet individuals and society's needs and is distributed according to an individual ability and contribution. Class distinction. Communism. Class is abolished. The ability to earn more than other workers is almost non-existent. Socialism. Classes exist, but differences are diminished. It is possible for some people to earn more than others. Religion. Under communism, religion is effectively abolished. Under socialism, freedom of religion is allowed. Why am I bringing this up? Most people don't know the definition between either. People will say that socialism is communism and communism is socialism. They're clearly not. I mean, one of the basic premises, religion, freedom of religion is allowed under socialism. It's not under communism. Think of China. They don't really allow religious freedoms. That's why they go after the Uyghurs. That's why they go after anybody. So there's no religion, supposedly. And now, remember, these are theories. There is no true communist state in place. There is no socialist state in place. There is no free market capitalism in place. There's basis that you use from this. Class distinction. Class is abolished under communism. Well, in China, if they're a communist country, class is not abolished. There are plenty of people that make billions of dollars. Classes exist in the socialist environment, but diminished. So inequalities are brought into place. That being said, why am I bringing this up? America, the land of the free market capitalism, democracy, individual rights, liberalism, no quid pro quo. Everything's above board and transparent, right? We're not a socialist state and we're not a communist state, clearly, right? Okay. So, under socialism, it talks about the central government helps, right? Economy planned by. Let me give you some kind of facts here. Let me give you some things here. Let's talk about Tesla and SpaceX. So Elon Musk, now he loves, so here's the other thing I want to point out. The U.S. government, but especially MAGA and Musk, love dictatorships, love communists, love far-right fascists. They love China. They can't go without doing business in China. Tesla even gave up they put their factories there so basically they could steal his tech to make BVD, the electric car company, which is now the biggest in the world. But that being said, Trump loves dictators. He loves a guy from North Korea. He loved what China did in the Tiananmen Square. He was quoted as saying, hey, they're a strong government. They should kill those people fighting for democracy. He was good with that. He is good with Viktor Orban, who is now out. He is good with Vladimir Putin. He is good with Erdogan in Turkey, who has basically taken all his generals and put them in jail, taken over the courts, quasi-authoritarian, right? Businesses are good with it. Apple did business with China. They actually had suicide nets where they would build the Apple products because people would work so much they would jump off the fucking buildings. True story. Tim Cook's a great guy. But as long as we get what we need. That's been the way for a lot of years. This isn't just the MAGA thing. This is an American thing, right? It is the way we've always done business. We don't really care what you're doing. Mining companies in Africa, we don't have to remediate anything. We'll pay the government. Let's do transactional business. It's all good, right? All these people are up in arms about the DSA. So that's democratic socialism. We're going to talk about that too. But I want to make a few points here. We are a socialist country. I don't know that we have social tendencies in our lives, whether conservatives like it or not, whether Democrats like it or not, whether liberals or libertarians like it or not. Let me give you an example. Perfect example is Tesla. Tesla's business got $38 billion in government funding. $38 billion, which is more than USAID got per year to help stop the spread of Ebola, which is going wildfire in Africa, to help with malaria nets, to basically help people that need help. Was there grift? Absolutely. How much grift do you think there was at USAID versus Elon Musk's empire? $38 billion. And what do we get out of it? I guess we get jobs. But I'm sure there would be no jobs if Elon Musk wasn't around, there'd be no jobs. I mean, Tesla and SpaceX and X don't employ very many people, just so we understand. And the reason he's succeeded, the biggest reason he's succeeded, is government funding. $38 billion. You know what that's called? That's called socialism. Now, some people would say, well, capital markets, and the government didn't need Teslas. They might need SpaceX, but they don't need Teslas. Why did they invest in that? It was smart. I believe it was smart. I don't like Elon Musk, but I do like what Tesla was doing. He's kind of stopped that mission, but he does believe in solar. He does believe in electric batteries. He actually used to believe in trying to help the environment, but it's socialism. That's socialism. SpaceX. Let's see what SpaceX has got. 38 billion. That was for both companies. Federal and local governments provided at least $6.3 billion to Musk companies, the highest amount to date in 2024. So this is during the Biden administration. Socialism. The central government's the planner. What do? They work with private businesses and give them money. Grants, Pell Grant, socialism for school. Grants for your business, tax write-offs. It's all socialism. People would say that's part of the free market. Is it free market? Is it really free market? How did this guy get into Doge, a guy who's going to Department of Government Efficiency, Oversight and Government Efficiency, is going to eliminate programs, but it didn't eliminate any of the funding for Tesla or SpaceX. Well, that in itself is cronyism and kleptocracy, but that's socialism. I'm for it, as long as we're doing it right. As long as it's productive. I believe in grants. I believe in business grants. I believe in private and public. But it's socialism. It's democratic socialism. That's what it is. I would go a step further, and say that if I'm going to give you a grant, if I'm going to give you a loan, if I'm going to help fund your fucking company, your education, I need something back. Legal quid pro quo. What do I get back? So let me give you an example. In a future state, when education isn't gone or costs $200,000 a year to go to a fucking college, maybe what we do is we give grants to those in need or those who qualify. Then for those that don't, we still give low interest to no interest loans. But what I get back is a societal debt. Maybe you have to serve and volunteer for the U.S. government for the year. Maybe you have to be in the reserves, the National Guard reserves, or the reserves, right? I'm not against the military going away. Maybe as a company, I get a subsidy back, right? So I'm going to let you build your Tesla plant that's going to use energy and water. But here are the rules. And I'm all for the abundance movement, but we still need some rules. No regulation leads to disaster. Overregulation leads to disaster. Again, it's the fucking horseshoe. They all lead the same fucking place. If you put too much regulation on, nothing happens. If you put no regulation on, it's the Wild West. And now we're in the Wild West. In 2008, we put regulation in because we let it be the Wild West, and we had a fucking $1 trillion, and another example of socialism. We did not let the market fail in 2008 when we had the financial crisis. We wrote a $1 trillion check to companies that took a risk that was way beyond. They put in default swaps and insurance swaps that were like 4 to 7 times the global economy's GDP. Nobody went to jail. I think one person went to jail. We bailed them out. That's socialism. We paid for it in our taxes. As we decrease the top end, we paid for it in our taxes. That's socialism. That's not capitalism. We should have let them all fail, those that wouldn't have succeeded. That would have been true capitalism. That would have been true free market. I believe we spent too much. I believe there were some cases where we should have been involved. But what do we get back? Right? Is it just GDP? So if I let your company, if I loan money to your company, I'm the government. If I give you a grant, if I give you a property tax deal, I need something more than just the promise of jobs or income. Maybe what I need is a piece of your company. I'm not against that. Over a period of time. Maybe what I need is you have to pay some sort of carbon fee. You have to pay a higher water fee. You have to pay a higher electricity grid, or you have to put in alternative energies like solar and wind to power your company while it's there. Again, legal quid pro quo. What am I getting in return other than just you making a lot of money, Elon, and some jobs? Now people say, well, there wouldn't be jobs there. Bullshit. The market always fills the gaps. Everybody thought Microsoft was going to own the world in the 80s. They were suing them. Now, I get it. There's some definitely, we should still have antitrust rules in place so that we can mitigate that gap. But to believe that if Elon Musk didn't exist in a better world, I don't want him dead, but that to believe that none of this would happen, if there was no Galileo, then there would have never been a Newton and there would have never been a Einstein. Bullshit. Put too much faith in one fucking person. One fucking company. socialism. So let's look at all the companies that Trump is involved with since he's come in. Now, again, if this was Joe Biden, it would have been crazy. But here we are. In just over a year, Trump has used billions of taxpayer dollars to buy shares for the government in a growing list of private companies. U.S. Steel, Intel, Westinghouse, and more, citing national security. So he's used our money, right, as we're running a debt. This isn't like we have extra money. We're not like Norway. So Norway has like a $2.5 trillion wealth fund, which averages out to like 400 grand per person. Different country, a lot smaller. Great idea. I like it. So we have bought shares into the private companies. So the government is involved. You can call that even communism, like China does. China controls those companies. The reason BYD is really successful is because China has funded it to make those cars cheap. BYD being the largest electric car maker in the world, we can't sell them here because it would devastate our market. In some ways, I agree with that because they're completely government funded or backed, basically too big to fail in most cases. So we, the free market capitalists, are taking ownership of U.S. Steel, Intel, Westinghouse. We promoted Dell to do the accounts. The stock went up. Trump traded on that. We did the TikTok deal. We are now on the board of TikTok. Now, we'll talk about who else is involved with that. China still owns ByteDance. So communists own part of a company that we let in a no-bid contract, so no-bid contract, unless it's for national security purposes, which very uniquely is almost never is. There's another form of communism, socialism, right? Because we aren't going out to what? The free market, right? And most of these things, what is it? We're financing it with our money, debt. Actually, money we don't even have. So we're using money we don't have to buy ownership in companies. That's socialism. In fact, that's negative socialism. That's not free market. Our debt is not good capital anymore. It used to be, but it's been driven up so much, and we've talked about this in other podcasts since 2000, starting with Bush, cutting tax rates and invading two countries, which nobody has ever done before. You don't cut taxes while you're lying about war in Iraq and starting a generational, war in Afghanistan. You don't cut taxes when you invade Iran, but we did. Again, we're truly socialists. The right would say we're not socialists, that we want to cut everything that's a social program, right? Social Security, Medicare. If we had started a proper sovereign wealth plan, like maybe some ownership interest in companies that make a difference for this country, maybe we should nationalize SpaceX, because what does SpaceX do? It works with NASA and it gets grants. Maybe we should nationalize it, but maybe we should own 20% of it, 10%. Maybe if we put it into a sovereign wealth fund, maybe with small amounts of Bitcoin, large amounts of gold, shares of companies, and not be in a position where we dictate, but to be in a position to lock in the future of America. Maybe we should be involved in solar companies like China or wind power companies. But we're not going to do that. We eliminated that. That's what we've done. That's called non-free market. We're going to give oil and gas subsidies from the federal government, but we're not going to give them to alternative energies. That's not free market. You give them the one or the other, and we should get something in return. If Chevron is getting an oil and gas subsidy, shouldn't we get a piece of that? Or is that socialism, communism? That's not free market. So, it's so easy to point out all these different things that come up and say, oh, you guys are socialists. The left is socialist. Well, yeah, I'm a progressive democratic socialist. I don't all align completely with the DSA and a lot of their policies. They have a mix match on, they talk about the genocide in in Palestine, but they want out of Ukraine. They want to defund the police completely. I don't believe in that. Do I believe that we need less wealth inequality? Yes. Do I believe in a communist manifesto to say everybody should have the same? No. You still need some true meritocracy. We do not have that in the United States. We have a loyalty program. That's what we have with our government now. And we've always had that a little bit. Think about people that go into Harvard because of legacy, because the dad went there. It's always been going on. There's always caveats. It's back to Noam Chomsky's thing. Capitalism is not a definitive structure. It is a belief system. It is a religion. It is a faith. And there's modifications of that. I believe in a better free market capitalist environment with a social element that allows us to do such things as this. But people want to say that that the left is socialist as Trump is buying shares in companies, as he's buying out wind farms with our money, not a free market. So it's not free market capitalism anymore. So what is it? Authoritarian, maybe? So when Musk talks about socialism and says it's such a bad thing and the left is so bad, he is the definition of success through social means, through government means, state, local, and federal, through immigration. He was not born here. All the things that he fights against, he takes advantage of. He talks about taxes being bad. Well, he's not being taxed. They get money from the government, Amazon. They get contracts. Think about the great industrial complex, the military industrial complex. Think about how scared they are that we're going to get out of NATO. The military industrial complex sells all their shit to other countries. Who do they do business with? Governments. Who do they get money from? Governments. You're telling me that's free market? Well, maybe it is, but there's a social element. We can't afford universal health care, but we can afford to give Elon Musk's companies $38 billion. That's just one. I mean, the oil and gas companies have over $1 trillion of subsidies, but we can't afford universal health care. We were the only country in this year's FIFA, which is a corrupt criminal organization's World Cup. The World Cup is great. The people are great. The countries are great. It's awesome. It's a great, simple tribal extravaganza, a little bit of nationalism, but okay, a lot of fun. Of the 48 countries, we're the only one without universal health care. Now, I'm not saying in those other 47 countries they have better health care available, even generally. What I'm saying is we're the only one. But we have the best for those that can afford it. But we can afford $1 trillion for oil and gas. We can afford $38 billion for Tesla and SpaceX. We can afford to buy shares in companies, but we can't afford basic health care for everybody. We can't afford rural hospitals. So when it comes to business, we're socialist on the right, quasi-socialist. But when it comes to the people, we're far-right fucking fascists. That's MAGA. Okay? It's simple. The left has done it too. The left tries to push the envelope on the right. Now, there are a lot of people that are talking about we should nationalize SpaceX. What does nationalize mean? The government takes it over. Because what are they doing? They're doing business for the government, and it is a security threat. It is national security. We do need some of that. The reason they're funded is because they've done deals. The reason SpaceX is working is because of the money they've gotten from the government. So we've paid for it. Everybody's like, this is great. We're not paying for it. There is a private company. Bullshit. The only reason SpaceX exists, the only reason is because of the U.S. government. Socialism. People would argue that's part of the government's part of that. Do you need the private public? I agree. But tell me where we're paying for it. This isn't a company that I started, that I got no government funding for and did business. Everybody's in on the pie on the government. They're the biggest consumer. So just admit it. Just come out and say it. So Scott Bessent, the head of the Treasury, fucking weirdo as far as I'm concerned. He's always right. Nobody else is right. Just him. He's spending $150 billion a month in debt. That's how much he's borrowing. $150 billion. So that's 12, what is that? Times 12. That's 1.8 trillion. So we're in debt. That's socialism. That's not free market capitalism. Why don't they have to balance the budget? Oh, because they can get more money, right? But they're the one printing it. How's that work? Again, that's capitalism? Too big to fail? Too big to fail is a communist/socialist manifesto. That's what it is. So for those of you that want to say the left is socialist, you're right. For those of you that want to say the right isn't, you're wrong. We're all socialists. It's how we deal with it and succeed with it, how we administer it. Do we need a sovereign wealth fund to help Social Security? Yes. Does that mean buying shares in companies? I don't know. But we need something that makes money on everything else. The reason Social Security is running out of money is because we're borrowing this money, we're taking money from it. The social experiment is part of a democratic society with capitalism part of that. If you go to China, they're going the reverse way. They're going communist, meaning we dictate, we control, no religion, and very few individual rights. But we're going to let capital elements come into our country. We have the social/communist programs, but we're going to let the capital elements in and we're going to control it. Our basis, and the way a lot of countries are that are close to like a democratic, liberal democratic socialist programs, France, countries in Europe, Norway, Finland, Sweden, Denmark, countries that are pretty successful, pretty positive, pretty happiness index. We should come at it from the liberalism, not liberal as in Democrat, liberalism, freedoms, which a communist socialist program like China has an illiberal society. So we come in as a liberal society with some capitalists, capital market intensity, with social programs, funding, controls to make the whole. It reduces inequality. It actually might be really beneficial. We actually tax appropriately. The idea that corporations don't need to pay tax. The idea that the rich have already been taxed enough. They're not paying their fair share. We know that. And people say that will destroy. Trickle-down economics doesn't fucking work. That is a pure capitalist environment that Milton Friedman wanted to believe in. But you know what else Milton Friedman, the conservative economist, the trickle-down theorist, believed in? Universal basic income. Now, he didn't believe in raising the minimum wage. So just so you know, federal minimum wage, $7.25. A non-livable wage, as one Republican senator or representative said. So you need 2 jobs, is what he's saying, but we don't want to raise it. Now, states are raising it to 15 to 20. We can't afford that either. We can't afford to raise minimum wage, but we can afford $38 billion for Elon Musk. We can afford $1 trillion or more for oil and gas. We can afford to buy shares in companies. So the question you ask yourself, is it okay to be a capitalist and still have social ideologies with regards to a social framework, a socialistic framework? You're not a socialist. You're a liberal, progressive, democratic socialist. That's what I am. I am not full DSA, but I support a lot of what they do. I support some of the things that Trump is doing and buying in these companies. I just wish there was more thought and process and agreement through Congress on it. I don't want the unitary executive theory, authoritarian Machiavellian style program that he's running. But some of it makes sense. So make sense of it. You are not, if you say you're for democracy, what does that mean? Well, I'm just for a free market capitalist society. Well, there's no such thing as a free market capitalist society. There isn't one on earth. Just look at the 2008 financial crisis. There's your example. You're not in a free market. They have no bid contracts. Halliburton got a no bid contract. Dick Cheney owned stock in Halliburton. They were the only ones, right? TikTok was a manufactured deal. It did not go to the free market. Trump dictated who bought that. That's not free market. So there is no free market capitalists. Free market, that doesn't exist. So figure out what it means. If you want to be libertarian, reduce government to nothing and pay no taxes, then buy your own fucking piece of property. Don't drive on my lands. Don't use my electric grid. Because some of that is funded through what? Social programs, my taxes, right? So if you want to be a libertarian, afford to buy your own fucking island and buy everything on its own. But don't drive on my fucking road. Don't send your kid to a public school. That's what libertarianism is. Is there a true libertarian? Rand Paul's not a true libertarian. He votes with Trump almost 90% of the time. Trump is not a libertarian. Kentucky needs less libertarianism. They're struggling in a lot of categories. Their governor's trying to help. Rand Paul and Mitch McConnell are not trying to help Kentucky. They're trying to help themselves and trying to help MAGA and stay in power. The governor of Kentucky, who happens to be a Democrat, who's a great guy, who doesn't want to run for president, I would like him to run for president, he has to balance it. Libertarianism doesn't work for more than 6 people. So it's okay to be a conservative if that's what you want, right? But tell me how that balances. Funding the military is socialist if you're in debt, because you're borrowing my money. We paid in. If everything was all equal, maybe we could get away with it. But we have $40 trillion in debt. Basent's running up another $150 billion a month. How about being an earthen? How about being for society? How about figuring it out without worrying about what your category is, what your tribe is, what your nationalistic fervor is? How about not hating everybody? Hey, you can hate some people. I don't like to say hate, but to say I hate those socialists as you go to the VA, which rightfully so, because you're in the military, that's socialist. I mean, isn't it? It's free healthcare. I mean, Trump's trying to get rid of that, but but you served your country. Oh, okay. Well, you're right. So shouldn't I get free healthcare? Because I paid more taxes in than I'm probably in the top 10 to 20% of people. Let's say top 20%. So shouldn't I get something back for my taxes? That's free? No, not me. It's that socialism. I'm fine with that. I think the VA should be better. There should be more involvement with medical and mental, more support for our military in those regards, not necessarily weapons and expansionism and isolationism and bombing fucking other countries. But I believe in social programs, and I am a capitalist, and I'm a socialist, and I'm progressive, and I'm on the left. And I thank you for watching this episode of The Way Left.